Everyone knows that Africa is a continent full of diversity and history, with vast landscapes and unique wildlife, right? Countries like South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, and Kenya are always at the top of travel lists. But what about Mauritania? Have you ever heard of it? Slavery is still a reality there, and children are born into conditions of servitude. Did you know that there are fattening farms where women are sent to gain weight, just like on cattle farms? What if I told you that there is a village where half the population is born blind? Today, Bello Mundo will take you to explore this enigmatic place and discover some of the most intriguing and surprising stories from this African country. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Mauritania is the kind of place where the desert reigns supreme and silence reigns supreme. In northwest Africa, this country seems suspended in time, with monumental dunes and vast arid plains that stretch as far as the eye can see. With an area of 1,030,000 square kilometers, it is a vast country almost the size of Egypt. But with so much space, the population is surprisingly small. The country is one of the least densely populated in the world, with only about 4 people per square kilometer. In other words, finding neighbors there can be more difficult than finding water. More than 2/3 of the territory is pure Sahara. We're talking about one of the driest places on the planet, where a drop of rain is as rare as a shadow in the middle of this immense desert. With Mali, Algeria, and Senegal as its neighbors, and the Atlantic Ocean lapping its deserted beaches to the west, Mauritania's geography is unique, to say the least. And here comes the surprise. Right on the coast is the Banque d'Arguin National Park, a veritable oasis for migratory birds. This refuge creates an almost surreal contrast, bringing life and color to the midst of so much sand and desolation. Another interesting fact is that the country is rich in mineral resources, especially iron and ore. In fact, the highest mountain in Mauritania, Mount Aigil, is made almost entirely of iron ore. What's more, the mountain appears bluish due to the high concentration of magnetite, an iron ore that is a natural magnet. And look how curious it is. Because of its magnetic properties, the mountain even hinders the functioning of navigational compasses. Most people live in urban areas, such as the capital, Nouakchott, while the rest are scattered in isolated villages, almost invisible in the immense desert. Number 2. History. Mauritania's history is as old as its sands, marked by forgotten kingdoms, caravan routes, and a fusion of cultures that intertwine in the desert. This territory was, for centuries, a crucial point for caravans crossing the Sahara, carrying gold, salt, and stories between North Africa and the rest of the continent. Around the 3rd century, Berber peoples began to dominate the region, establishing commercial and cultural links that connected Mauritania to the Ghana Empire, one of the richest at the time. Later, Islam arrived in force, bringing not only a new religion but also a new way of life and influences that would shape the country forever. During the era of European colonizations, Mauritania was annexed to the French Empire, becoming part of French West Africa. It wasn't until 1960 that the country gained its independence, but the road wasn't easy. Since then, Mauritania has gone through periods of political instability and coups d'etat, which have tested the resilience of its population. But if there's one thing in the country's history that is sad and still striking, it's that even after all this time, the country still hasn't completely abolished slavery. Number 3. Slavery. It seems impossible to believe that in the 21st century, there is still a place where children are born as the property of other people. But in this territory, this is the reality for many. The country carries one of the darkest chapters of slavery, a problem that, even after centuries, has still not been completely eradicated. Officially, slavery was abolished in 1981, but in practice there was little change. It was only in 2007, with intense international pressure, that the practice was formally made a crime. Even then, the laws had little impact on the thousands of people trapped in this system. The condition of slave is hereditary, passed down from mother to son, and the wealthiest families still own other people, keeping this painful practice alive. The society is made up of Moors, a term that describes the inhabitants of North Africa, most of whom are Muslims. The historical division between Moors and Africans reflects the local social structure. For centuries, Africans were captured and made slaves by Arabs and their descendants, forming a deep-rooted system of servitude, where slavery is still seen by some as a tradition. In this scenario, slaves do the hard labor under the scorching sun, domestic service, and other manual tasks. They work without pay, without rest, and without the right to education, documents, or marriage, except under the master's permission, a term that still persists. It is estimated that around 20% of the population, or more than 90,000 people, still live in conditions of slavery, the largest number in the modern world. Shocking, isn't it? Number 4. Largest ship graveyard. Now let's put aside the gloomy themes and get into a curiosity of the kind that makes anyone want to know the country and not run away from it. Have you ever wondered where ships end up after they retire? Dismantling these gigantic vessels is expensive, so some less scrupulous owners have found a cheap solution in Mauritania, Nouakchott Bay, also known as the world's largest ship graveyard. It all started in the 1980s, when the local fishing industry was nationalized and many boats were left unused. To make matters worse, the lack of supervision and a little corruption opened the door for foreign vessels to be abandoned there too. The result was a veritable sea of rusting hulls, with fishing boats, cargo ships, and even larger vessels forming a surreal and desolate landscape. These wrecks have not only changed the face of the bay, but have also posed serious environmental risks. The old carcasses can release toxic substances into the sea, threatening marine life, not to mention the visual pollution and the dangers these remains pose to navigation. But most surprising of all, many of these ships were dumped with the permission of the local authorities, who turned a blind eye after a few bribes. Number 5. Eye of the Sahara. Continuing our journey through the unknown side of Mauritania, let's talk about a curiosity that seems to have come out of a mythology book, the famous reshaped structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara. You've probably heard of the lost city of Atlantis, right? This legend is one of the favorite themes of adventure and fiction films. According to Plato, Atlantis was an advanced naval power, organized in circles of land and water, located beyond the columns of Hercules. And where is the column of Hercules? Good question. However, given the situation, probably in Mauritania. In 1965, during the Gemini Quarto space mission, astronauts spent 4 days orbiting the Earth, taking pictures of the surface in search of signs of meteor impacts. And that's how they spotted the Eye of the Sahara, a circular formation 40 kilometers in diameter, right in the middle of the desert in Mauritania. Today, more than 50 years later, this phenomenon remains a mystery, and the eye is believed to be more than 100 million years old, but no one knows for sure how it was formed. Over time, various theories have emerged to explain this eye in the desert, one of which suggests that it could be the last vestige of Atlantis. After all, the eye's appearance, with its layered circles, is reminiscent of the description of the legendary city. Could we be looking at a piece of one of humanity's greatest legends? Number 6. The world's largest train. Here's another impressive curiosity about this country. It's home to the world's longest train. The famous Mauritanian ore train is a veritable steel giant, some 2.5 kilometers long. This train crosses the desert carrying tons of iron ore from the mines of Zouera to the port of Nouadhibou on a journey that cuts through the arid heart of the country. But this is not just an impressive feat of engineering. It is also one of the most important means of transportation in the region. The train doesn't just carry ore. Locals often travel in the wagons to move between remote areas of the desert. Number 7. Fattening farm for women. While in the West, the pursuit of thinness is almost an obsession, in Mauritania, the standard of beauty is completely different. For Mauritanians, a beautiful woman is a woman with generous curves. The more voluminous she is, the better her chances of getting a good husband. And interestingly, stretch marks on the arms are seen as a sign of incomparable charm. In the verses and songs of the Moors, obese women are glorified as a symbol of beauty and status. But behind this preference lies a cruel tradition, where young Mauritanian girls spent long periods on fattening farms, where they ate a high-calorie diet based on red meat, butter, and camel's milk, until they achieved the consistency and weight necessary to attract a good husband. On these farms, the girls go through an intense 3-month regimen, being forced to stay as still as possible so as not to burn off heat and to eat all day, with a diet that can reach 16,000 calories a day. Nowadays, the methods for gaining weight are different and more modern. Although no one talks about it in public because it's a taboo subject, fattening, or le bleu, as it's called in the local dialect, is well known by the region's inhabitants. Young Mauritanian women, for example, gain weight with tablets and syrups, which are sold freely on the market and without the need for a prescription. Often, women from this region even use animal fattening products. For those who want to know more about this practice, we have a video here on the channel that explores all the details of the fattening farms where women are treated like animals. In the video, you can see how, in extreme cases, if a girl can't eat anymore, she is even physically punished. After this video, be sure to check out Life in Mauritania and prepare yourself, because this content promises to shock in every way. Number 8. Market for divorced women. In addition to slavery in the 21st century and fattening farms, Mauritania has another head-turning practice: the divorced women's market. Yes, in Nouakchott, the country's capital, there is a market-like place where women who have been divorced meet. And don't think they come there to mourn the end of their marriage. There, divorce is a cause for celebration, a real milestone for a new beginning. Just imagine, the woman gets divorced and is greeted with a party, friends and family giving her their support, while she prepares to take her life in a new direction. And how does this new phase begin? By selling the furniture and possessions from her previous marriage. Some women even start with simple items, but quickly expand their business, selling clothes, accessories, and even venturing into the import and export trade. Each sale is a step towards independence, one achievement after another. Now, the most interesting part is that in Mauritania, these divorced women are seen as real jewels for marriage. With all their experience and independence, they gain the status of strong and desirable women, attracting many marriage proposals, often even more than single women. Best of all, they support each other, exchange experiences, and create a unique community where divorce is nothing to be ashamed of, but rather a chance to start over and thrive. Here, women show that they can reinvent themselves, transforming the end of a union into the beginning of a new phase full of opportunities. This meeting place for divorced women goes far beyond commerce. It symbolizes strength, resilience, and, above all, the ability to reinvent oneself. In Mauritania, the end of a marriage is seen as a new chance, and these women prove that the future is full of possibilities. Number 9. The Village of the Blind. Did you think this was the end of the curiosities? Get ready, because in Mauritania, there is a place that defies all explanation: the mysterious Village of the Blind. Imagine a village lost in the heart of the Sahara Desert, where half the inhabitants were born without sight. Well, such a place exists, and it's called Dali Koumbé, an isolated community almost 1,000 kilometers from the capital, Nouakchott. What makes Dali Koumbé so unique is not just the high rate of blindness, but the mystery surrounding this condition. How did so many people lose their sight? And even more impressively, how do they manage to live in perfect harmony with this reality? Local legend holds an enigmatic answer. They say that 10 generations ago, a spiritual entity appeared in a dream to a pregnant woman, predicting that all her descendants would be born blind, as if the fate of the village had been sealed forever. Curiously for them, this was never a curse, but just their way of life. The inhabitants of Dali Koumbé have developed such acute senses that they seem to see by touch and smell. They can distinguish the texture of the soil, identify the smell of water from meters away, and walk through the village as if they saw every detail. For the surrounding villages, they are seen as guardians of the desert, with an almost magical ability to locate water sources hidden under the sand. Living without seeing the sky seems impossible to many, but for them it is a gift, accepted with serenity. Each resident of Dali Koumbé is proof that the senses can create a whole new way of perceiving the world. They move without hesitation, distinguish between fresh and salt water by touch, and know the desert like few others. And so we end our journey through some of Mauritania's most fascinating stories. Did you already know these mysteries? Let us know in the comments which part surprised you the most. If you're curious to discover more secrets and places that challenge what we know, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next videos. To those of you who have watched us so far, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode of our Bello Mundo adventure.